Hello and welcome to episode 37 of Battlefield 4 News, and today we have a bunch of leaks from the forthcoming Naval Strike. We have the assignments, the weapons and some details on Titan mode. The first of the assignments is Always Deadly. You must be rank 10 and own the Naval Strike DLC, and you need 3 sniper rifle ribbons and get 5 kills with C4 on Naval Strike maps. Now, this could be as simple as that, or it could be you need it all in one round, but usually your ribbons can be got in any round, but you might need to get the 5 C4 kills in the same round. We don't know. But the reward is the SR338. Second assignment is Curveball. Must be rank 10 and have Naval Strike again, and you need to get 10 kills with an impact grenade. Now, I'm assuming that means get 10 kills with the impact grenade, not a single impact grenade, and the reward for that is the SW40, which is a pistol firing the Smith & Wesson 40 caliber pistol round. Next we have Packing a Punch, which again is must be rank 10 and have Naval Strike, and for this you need to destroy 20 boats. The reward for this is the SR2 Veresk, which is a PDW. Next we have Spare Time Sniper. Again, you must be rank 10 and have Naval Strike. You need to get 3 assault rifle ribbons and you need 20 shots with assault rifles. I'm assuming this isn't all in the same round, but with the way the wording of some of the assignments has been, you never know. The reward for this is the AR-160, which is better known as the Beretta ARX-160. Next we have Swiss Cheese. Again, must be rank 10 and have Naval Strike. You need 3 LMG ribbons and you need to destroy 3 vehicles as support. Now, it doesn't say if being the support class and being in a vehicle will enable that, or whether you're going to have to run around with C4 or a UAV and do it that way. The reward is the AWS LMG. Now, the AWS was the Advanced Weapons System, and the AWS LMG is better known as the Shrike, I believe. So let's have a look at these weapons a bit closer. We have the AWS, which is an LMG. Seems to have reasonable stability in hip fire. It's got a rate of fire of 800 rounds, it's got a magazine size of 100, and it's using 5.56 NATO, so we can assume that's going to be a damage model of 25 maximum. We have the SR338, and this is where things get a bit interesting, because this is semi-automatic, but it's a sniper rifle, not a DMR, because it's using an 8x scope, and that's going to be an interesting balance in between the two, I think. And we have the SW40 pistol, which is semi-automatic with a chamber size of 6. It says magazine, but it's not going to be magazines. And it says it's a 357, but from reading up what I understand, that's a Smith & Wesson 40 caliber, not a 357. I don't know much about guns, but I'm guessing they're using 357 instead, so they have a standard damage model. Next we have the SR2, which seems to have really good hip fire and reasonable damage. It's only got 30 shot magazine and a rate of fire of 900. So I imagine this is going to be something similar to the MP7. And finally we have the AR-160. This has a rate of fire of 700, magazine size of 30, and he's using 5.56 NATO, so it's going to be doing the 25 damage model, and it seems a reasonable assault rifle. There's nothing outstanding on it. Next we move on to the gadgets, but first we have the precision knife. Now, this is a one-piece knife which looks remarkably like one of the South African combat knives made by Chris Reeves, but there's a number of knives that all look the same. Next we have the 2 gadgets, which are both proving quite controversial. Now, this is before people have even used them. The M320 3GL, which is a 3-shot semi-automatic grenade launcher. Now, it does say they're using smaller 40mm grenades, but I'm hoping the damage has been reduced more than the V40 mini grenade was reduced. After that we have the AA mine, and I can see this being used a lot around objectives. you can stop those low-flying helicopters trying to capture objectives and stop people paradropping in by dropping a few AA mines around them. Now, from what I've read, there are two different types of AA mine in the real world. There is one that acts like a bouncing Betty and explodes into the air and then detonates with a cloud of shrapnel, and there's another which basically sends up a plume of shrapnel straight from the ground. So I'm not sure which type we're going to be getting in game. The last of the leaks was a video of a tutorial showing how carrier assault actually works, and it's slightly different to Titan mode. So here you can see 3 capture points, but they're labelled C, D and E, and that is because A and B are on one carrier and F and G are on another, but they're not instantly accessible. You can only get to B if you've blown up A, and you can only get to G if you've blown up F. So in this shot you can see that we've captured E, and a missile battery symbol appears next to it, and that has a countdown, and when the countdown is complete it will fire off a missile towards the enemy carrier. So the more control points you control, the more missiles get fired off at their carrier. So here we can see the carrier has been hit, and that the damage status across the top, which is the red ship slowly turning black, has dropped by 5%. So it looks like each missile strike from a control point takes 5% off the carrier's health. And here we can see the control points firing off at the different carriers at different times. And we can also see the target locations on the carrier, which is each of the flag locations, or A and B when it comes to the red carrier, or F and G when it comes to the blue carrier. And that's probably important because this screenshot shows somebody landing a helicopter on the carrier and then attacking the A point. Now, I'm not sure if you can do this straight away or whether the carrier needs to have taken a certain amount of damage first, but you can control points on the enemy carriers, but you can only see A point, you can't see B point, and it would appear you have to blow up A point before you can then move on to the B point. But you'll notice that destroying the A point hasn't done any damage to the actual carrier itself. So it looks like there are two different ways at least of taking down the carrier. One is by using the missile systems at the control points, and one is by destroying A and B on the opposing team's carrier. And as you can see, when you've destroyed B as well, then the carrier explodes. So it looks like quite an interesting game. You can either hold objectives and try and take the carrier out with missiles, but if your carrier's close to death, you could launch an all-out attack on the enemy carrier and try and take out the objectives. So it's going to be an interesting game of attack and defense. You've got to keep people back to defend your carrier. The images section of the Battlefield 4 website gives us a few more clues. Here we can see the 2-man hovercraft, and in the background you can see one of the missile batteries and the plane, which apparently you can blow up and climb around inside of. Now the hovercraft is smaller than I was expecting and doesn't seem to have any weapons of its own. Now this is an interesting image. It shows one of the fishing villages on the left hand side, but the major thing that has my interest is this appears to be a low light map. Now either that sun is setting or that sun is rising, but either way it is pretty gloomy. It's either a dusk or dawn map, and maybe the sun rising or setting is the levolution on this map, and that would be a really interesting change. The next image we have shows one of the carriers, and if you notice at the end of the carrier there is an open hatchway, which I assume is where all the boats and hovercraft leave. Now this could be another way into the carrier, meaning you could storm it by sea and not have to rely on a pilot. Now at first this picture seems a bit bland, it's just an attack chopper following a boat. But the explosions are interesting. On the right hand side, if you zoom in, that seems to be an explosion hitting a carrier. but the explosions on the left hand side seem to be a missile strike coming in at that capture point. So does that mean the carriers have a method of firing back? So the smart money on Naval Strike's release date is still the 30th or 31st of March. No one's exactly sure, and that could depend on your time zone, and that is purely for premium members. Non-premium members will have to wait the 2 weeks as usual. That's pretty much everything we know about Naval Strike to date. We've got a few official information sources, we've got the leaked screenshots, and there's the leaked video. Now I do want to show somebody else's video, so I use stills, but I'll put a link to that tutorial video in my description. And that's it for this episode of Battlefield 4 News, and I hope you found this Naval Strike roundup useful. Thanks for watching.